I've always had a weird obsession with shopping malls. Growing up in the suburbs, the mall kind of felt like an escape. There's virtually nowhere in the suburbs where you can just get out of your car and simply exist in a space with other people. And the original inventor of the shopping mall, Victor Gruen, knew this. In car-centric suburbia, we are missing a place outside of home and work, what Victor called a third place. He was trying to give people a space to walk around, interact with others, and feel a sense of community outside of the isolating, car-centric suburban experience. But somewhere along the way, something went terribly wrong, and Victor Gruen grew to hate his creation, and it made the problem he was trying to solve much, much worse. Victor Gruen was an architect who grew up in the city of Vienna, Austria. Vienna? Whatever. He was making a living designing storefronts. In Vienna, the city was packed tight, full of walkable streets with variety and surprise around every corner. He was in the midst of coffee houses, theaters, restaurants, stores, and apartments, all within walking distance between each other. And this created a much more lively living experience for Victor. Victor said he was living in Europe's center of intellectual and cultural life. This is the experience you get when you're surrounded in a place full of people and stores and energy. When he fled to America during the Second World War, he was horrified of what he saw. Cars everywhere. Consumerism had taken over. Disgusting advertisements and signage packed between miles and miles of concrete. You are familiar with this. It's everywhere in America. Every place in America has this problem. Do you want to go to a coffee shop that's right across the street? You better get in a car. Do you want to go hang out with your friends? You better go get in a car. And then what are you gonna go do? Hang out at the coffee shop? I guess. That's the only thing to do in the suburbs. That's it. Expletive. Disgusting. I hate it. So Victor wanted to create the experience he had in Vienna here in America, but he wanted to do it in the middle of the suburbs. His solution was to remove all the obnoxious commercialism outside and pack it into these huge, abstract, mostly blank structures. And then people would drive their cars to these structures and walk inside to become engulfed in this beautiful downtown-like environment. Open spaces, fountains, greenery, sculptures, and of course, storefronts. But once this design came to life, there was something missing. Victor wanted to include not just department stores and food courts, but schools, medical centers, parks, art galleries, even apartments. He wanted to build a whole planned community, a community that was designed around the human being and not just cars. But during the approval process, the city planners decided to remove everything that made it a community space and left nothing but profit-generating retail. In Victor Gruen's first mall, Southdale, they kept a few interesting pieces, like a small aquarium, a zoo, a few fountains, and a large open space in the middle, with really nice 50s design throughout. Unfortunately, all this beauty was just an accessory for the main purpose of the mall, to get people to shop. Victor continued to design shopping malls, but was still obsessed with the idea of creating a full-fledged planned community. He later got the idea to completely redesign Fort Worth, Texas. His vision had a battery-powered transit system, walkable streets, and cars would be completely outlawed. The plan was a nationwide hit. Politicians and journalists called it the City of Tomorrow. The Fort Worth plan fell through after years of deliberation, but it did inspire city officials in Kalamazoo, Michigan, for a much less ambitious project. The world's first outdoor shopping mall. Wow. Great stuff. You took a mall and you took the roof off. Wow. Innovation. It does look pretty cool, so, I mean, a couple years later, Victor did get one more shot at building one of these outdoor walkable city thingies in Fresno, California. This one actually did get built, and it was successful for 2 years, and then it just didn't bring in the crowds that people were expecting. Mostly because people got up and moved to the suburbs. Maybe people wouldn't have moved away if there was some housing included in this project. Oh wait, there was, and they removed it. Okay. In 1968, Victor returned to Austria in disgust of what his creation had evolved into. Shopping malls exploded in popularity all across the United States, and retailers capitalized on this growth and built even more shopping and suburbs around these areas. The invention of the shopping mall, along with tax incentives and a record number of people owning automobiles, was the catalyst of the suburban, retail, car-centric bullcrap that Victor was intentionally trying to avoid. That's a mouthful. Suburban, retail, car-centric bullcrap. It's what you're used to now. This is what we have. The America that you know today is because of this growth. It's a suburban sprawl. Gosh, it just... The New Yorker called him the most influential architect of the 20th century, but it was for all the worst reasons. I refuse to pay alimony to those bastard developments, he said. So what went wrong? How did someone trying to solve the problem of car-centric suburbia end up making it so much worse? Was it even his fault? Victor Gruen died in 1980, and shopping malls across America continued to grow into its peak in the 90s. While still a disgusting hub of consumerism, shopping malls were a cornerstone of American culture. For some people, including me, the shopping mall was a third place for people to socialize and connect with each other. Still, there's something about shopping malls that just resonates with me. I'm not sure if I'm just reminiscing about a simpler time, if I just love the design of these places, or if I was feeling the potential of what this environment was supposed to be. A social space, an indoor architectural landscape designed for the human body. But I think that there was a fundamental flaw in all of Victor Gruen's ideas. You can't build a carless, walkable city in the middle of car-centric suburbia. Even though Victor was trying to build a carless utopia, you still had to drive your car from the cul-de-sac into a tightly packed parking lot that takes up more than 3 times the space of the mall itself. If you have to drive your car to your carless city, then it's not a carless city. Even his plan for Fort Worth, Texas, they were going to build 16 million square feet of parking outside the city center. Same goes for his plan in Fresno. This pedestrian mall was still designed and catered to the cars that were driving around it. That's why it failed. It's not carless at all. It's insane that he missed this point. Like, what a blind spot. His vision was flawed right from the beginning. If you want to fight against car-centric suburbia, you need to change the design of the suburbs at its roots. You need to eliminate the need for a car and create a walkable landscape designed around people, bikes, and public transit. You need to create a mixed-use environment. One of the best examples of this might be in the Netherlands. They started doing car-focused urban planning in the 1960s, only to rip up all these horrible roads a few decades later, proving that this kind of transformation is possible. They built pedestrian streets and bike paths, all interconnected with apartments, suburbs, and retail locations. They still have cars, and some people use them for certain occasions, but everyone has gotten used to the carless environment, and most people living there prefer it that way. And you can see it. Like, look at all these people walking around and biking, and you can feel the energy of these places. Like, this is that center of cultural and intellectual space thing that Victor was talking about. I feel like places that look like this are the reason some Americans travel to these European countries, to get away from this. At least that's why I want to visit, and I really hope I can visit one day. Please subscribe so that maybe one day I can afford to go there. These places almost feel magical compared to the endless parking lots that we see in America. And just by looking at these places, you can really see the resemblance to shopping malls, with shops and restaurants all lining these walkable streets and people living all in between it. The main difference being people don't have to get into a car to experience these places. Residential spaces are built on top of these places or are just a short distance away from them, making home life and outside life a completely seamless experience. You can almost imagine how different social life must be in these environments, not having everyone be separated by metal boxes on wheels and lawns. The way we have built our landscape in America is literally keeping us apart from each other. So how do we solve this problem? Well, you might find it interesting that building mixed-use infrastructure like this is actually illegal in most parts of America. Everything is stuck to single-family housing and widespread retail. There are still some places in America with retail and residential buildings all connected within each other, but that's because they were built this way decades ago. So if you want this kind of living, breathing, walkable living experience, these old places are really your only option, and they're not building any more of them. We need to cut our land use in half. We need to build more dense housing, focus on public transportation that is walkable from people's homes, and build all the retail space that we need in between. We need mixed use areas. We need mixed use development or infrastructure, whatever it's called, I don't know. And I think if they can make this change in the Netherlands, then I think we can do it here as well. If we build communities that don't rely on owning a car, we can turn the world right outside of our homes into the third place that Victor Gruen was imagining. Except, I don't think it would exactly be a third place. It would transform all of these places into one, a place that harbors culture, community, and care for the human body. Victor had a great idea. His heart was in the right place, but Even he couldn't get around the capitalist dogma that controls our world. Having to drive your car to these walkable spaces just made all the problems of the suburbs worse and more isolating. I don't know if we'll ever get to experience something like Victor Gruen's vision for a full planned community, but we can get closer to that vision if we stop designing around cars and start designing around human beings.